I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for everyone who's organized this and brought us together. It's been great meeting the other seminar leaders, and I hope to chat with some of the rest of you, the teachers, here this afternoon. So, my approach to Latin culture, my PhD was in sociology, so I approach teaching this work in my classes and including my vision for the seminar in terms of broader structural questions and what cultural forms, Latin cultural forms, have to offer. And so by that I mean, every type of cultural form ranging from alternative practices to mass media as, I think productive places for us to explore cultural politics and other kinds of questions that are relevant of the time. So in other words, my work really approaches Latin cultural forms as always informed and mediated by structural systems of power such as race and class, but also always holding, I think, a really rich potential for telling alternative histories, for ways in which people imagine self-representation of themselves, legibility, visibility, by which to mobilize, and also as public voices, really, that can become critiques around issues of the day or, anything happening in the world, such as many things happening in our current moment. Currently, according to the Hispanic Research Institute, 1 out of 4 youth in the U.S. is Latin. And in Connecticut, about 24% of all K through 12 students enrolled are Latin, with the majority of those enrolled in the lower grades. Right, so some of you teaching lower grades are seeing this already, likely, or you will be seeing them if you're teaching middle and high school increasingly. And I mention this because in some ways the seminar lies at the intersection of this changing demographic in every state across our nation, along with, the fact that the K through 12 youth are, and we know this already, you don't need for me to tell you, are really engaged in media, social media to everything else, right? They spend a lot of time with it. They have lots to say about it. And I think it has rich potential for being able to utilize in K through 12 classrooms how we can bring interesting, productive questions and other insights, and even students' own creativity as part of that as well. So, it's really situated at that intersection, I think, and that's the way I'm approaching it. So, it is appropriate, I think, for K through 12 grades. These forms, I think, have a way of sort of emerging and transforming their cultural productions, the ways that they are consumed, I think, again, are really rich areas for thinking about historical moments of migration, for example, language politics, or race and gender constructions, among others. And what I kind of just want to end with are just 4 examples of, how this seminar might offer teachers across a variety of areas. So, for example, history teachers, a great example that I even teach in my classroom is around public exhibits like the museum, as a site of artifacts and as an archive. And I think we can think about museums as a reflection, right, of a story, of a population, of a historical narrative. But we can also think about that museum as a site to pose critical questions, right? For example, who gets to be the source of the exhibit? What kinds of narratives are written about those forms or those people? And to instead see something like a museum exhibit as a critical stage for working through those kinds of questions. Music and media, that's a big, that is happening now. I mean, we can turn to our friend Bad Bunny, right? And in fact, some of my colleagues, you probably read about this here at Yale and Wesleyan, and others are teaching courses on Bad Bunny, right? Why? Because a popular cultural figure, as much as we may want to dismiss someone like that as a commodified, commercialized artist, holds a lot of power. Right? I mean, K-pop is the other thing my kids are listening to too, like many of you, right? But they're also really important sites where power plays out, where historical narratives, where identity formations play themselves out. And so Bad Bunny, if in the humanities or social science classes, you can use that to, teach about the history of Puerto Rico and the island of Puerto Rico's relationship to the United States and colonialism, again, depending on the grade level. Language is something also for language teachers or for English teachers. I think about the clip, for example, of the No Sabo kid. Do you all know about this individual? So, this is an example of a kid who was interviewed after a soccer game in Los Angeles, right? Los Angeles is a very highly populated Mexican descent city. And an interviewer on Telemundo interviews this kid, asks him a question in Spanish, and the kid responds in Spanglish, right? In a really broken kind of English-Spanish language. I mean, it is a legit language, I think. And so this kid goes viral because many people critiqued and criticized this young person for not knowing Spanish appropriately, right? So there's a lot of ways in which the politics of language, how that was, how people thought of that young kid, questions like, is he really Latino or not? What are parents doing? Judgment against not teaching him. But also the reality that most kids beyond a certain generation aren't Spanish speakers anymore, right? They're Spanglish speakers. And so there's also really a lot of books that I think, novels and fiction that have a lot of issues around bilingualism and Spanglish language terms that, again, are really good examples of that. And then, of course, technology and representation for courses that are more media related, right? We can think of movies or the film, right, as a genre, but we, also recall that D.W. Griffith's 1915 motion picture, right, the first major motion picture that wasn't a serial, that is really in some ways the birth of cinema in the U.S. Birth of a Nation and Martyrs of the Alamo were both based on very disparaging racist representations during post-Reconstruction era and the historical moment of the Battle of the Alamo. So, technology and film come together there in a really interesting way. And so that could be also like a really interesting site for a classroom that has to do with actually like how media, technology, and issues of representation are intertwined in a very unique way. And we could follow those and other examples across the 20th and into the 21st century as well. So those are just some examples that I thought of. I'm really excited, and really, I think answering questions might also provide some more information about how would I approach certain texts and the like. And I think we'll have a really productive and fun and fruitful seminar. So thank you all, and I look forward to questions.